Hey there, folks. It's Eric from Belgrade Beat. Today I'm not on the streets. I am sitting at home, and I just found this really good video posted called Stop Idolizing Russia. So, being a Canadian who lives in Serbia, I thought I'd respond to this video because I like this guy, and I think that he's really smart and has interesting ideas. So, basically, here's what the video looks like.
In this video and might feel offended by this video. And that's actually good, for good reason, because I want to have a real discussion in this video, real dialogue. So I just want you guys to have an open mind, because today we're going to be talking about people idolizing Russia and people idolizing Eastern Europe for the wrong reasons, in bad faith. Now, what do I mean by that? Let me get into this slowly. Let me give you guys some context. So for a very long time now, it's been a very long time ago where I noticed that people in the West a lot of the time are idolizing Russia and Eastern Europe. So,
All right, so yes, definitely this is a thing that does happen. But it's also the other way around. And so I would emphasize that I'm going to say you, assuming this guy's watching me, hey buddy, you are idolizing Western culture as well. And it's a very healthy thing to explore other cultures and what they have to offer. And I've pretty much based my life on that. And okay, so my background is a mixture of German and Slavic and basically British. I'm pretty much a mishmash of all of that. My father's family is from Slovakia, but they're Germans, and my mother's half Ukrainian and half from the British Isles, basically. And I grew up in Canada with lots of different ideas about Slavicness and Germanness and basically experiencing all of that. Now, I was always raised with a healthy skepticism towards Russian stuff. And now I live in a country called Serbia, which I feel is not east, west, north, south, or anything like that. And a lot of people here are also idolizing Russia in a very different way. And the way that people here idolize Russia is very similar, that it's a true Slavic powerhouse of pure Slavicness and all this stuff. And even though Serbia has very little to do with Russia on a day-to-day basis, because Russia is quite far away. And, the economic influence of the European Union is much stronger here in Serbia, even though it's not part of the European Union. It's surrounded by states that are. So, yeah. So here from the Balkan ghetto, being a person from North America who has chosen to live here, I will address the subject of idolizing Russia and why people become Slavophiles. Why people in the West might prefer, for example, the idea of a country that still runs on a traditional sort of mentality. I would like to invoke spiral dynamics as a lens of looking at this. It's a little bit esoteric and niche, but I'll post his video and I'll post my intro to spiral dynamics there so you understand what I'm saying. But basically, it's the difference between traditional societies, collectivist societies, and the modern societies, the modern individualist society of North America, and people like myself. So I'm not just one of these people who sits in their Western country idolizing the Slavic lands, Eastern Europe. No, I actually live in Eastern Europe, and I actually made a decision to embrace this European side of myself, and that I want to somehow find what's good in that and combine it with what's good of North American culture that I grew up in, Western European, Anglo culture, Germanic culture. So I'll start by saying that my money does not come from Eastern Europe, and my opinion is that people here are absolutely horrible at business in a lot of cases in the way that they do things, because, well, they don't have that goal towards perfection and optimizing things that people in North America do, which is like more of an orange capitalistic society. On spiral dynamics, it's orange, stage orange, and it's going into stage green, which we'll get to. Anyways, so I'm in Serbia. It's a very traditional society, horrible at business, bad for business, good for pleasure. So my philosophy is actually I want to live in a place like this, which is very good for pleasure. And it's a lot more pleasurable because there's a lot less bullshit going on in the way that people express themselves here. So I basically can say that there's a lot more emotional freedom here compared to where I grew up in Canada, where people are so emotionally repressed You could not believe it. They do not speak their mind. They're thinking of how to say everything appropriately, politely, and all this stuff. And there's a level of bullshit. And it essentially means that they're pretty much brainwashed into having the sorts of opinions that are acceptable, and they're worried about what other people think when they step outside of the ideology. And while I support all of this social justice stuff in America, going on, equality for people, giving reducing police brutality, and all that stuff, what you might not be able to see if you're sitting in Russia and watching all this stuff go down is how much people are policing themselves in a way that's kind of, dogmatic, kind of repressive, and that, yes, on paper, you have a lot more free speech in a place like the USA or Canada than you will in Russia on paper, in terms of censorship and people getting locked up for their opinion and stuff like that. But that's mainly because the whole society has become so successful at introducing this sort of ideological conformity in people and having them police themselves that you don't need to put people in jail. People will just marginalize anybody who sits outside of the narrative of society, and they'll just push them to the side. They'll just push them to the side and not listen to them. You can sing your protest song. It's not like in some countries where they have to put musicians in jail because their protest of society is actually gaining traction. No, in the West, the whole machine of information and the way that you're taught to behave in the society and live your life is a very well sort of layered scam of how to think, how to behave, that has been essentially put on since you're born. You get indoctrinated into the system, and it's kind of weird. I don't know. There's something kind of creepy about North American society and the way that the ideology sort of gets you on all sides when you're growing up there. So a lot of people like me come to a place like Eastern Europe, or it could be China, it could be other places, and they feel more free because the society is straightforward. It's more traditional. They know what the deal is. Yes, there's a government that puts people in jail when they're ideological opponents, but that doesn't usually affect us, the sorts of people who come and live in these countries, in our opinion. So it's kind of interesting to see this guy Roman on his channel, being a Russian dude who obviously has absorbed a lot of American culture, growing up in English-speaking culture. And to see him sort of criticizing the way people look at Russia, and I agree that Russia is a brutal place to live, especially from Serbia. I think Serbs idealize Russia, and they feel a connection to Russia, but they wouldn't feel that connection in the same way if Russia had been dominating their politics for most of the last century and forcing Serbs to speak Russian, and they would probably feel more like the Ukrainians do a lot of the time, right? The dominance of Russia. So Russia is the Slavic culture that I am most skeptical of, because they're the ones that made a big sort of empire out of it. And that empire is running through my blood, my blood as well. I am 1/4 from the former Russian Empire, territory of modern day Ukraine, and that's 1/4 of my heritage. But the half of me that was German from Slovakia is very skeptical about Russia, and very we take lots of Slavic stuff into our culture, these Slovak Germans that essentially raised me. I'd say that we remain pro-Western in our orientation, and so do I in my life in Serbia. I wouldn't want Russia to take over the world, take over this part of Europe. And the reason why the European Union let in Romania and Bulgaria into their European Union is because they also didn't want that to happen here. That's why Montenegro has been, taken into NATO and all that stuff. It's a power grab. So you have to realize that what we're looking at here is a clash of civilizations. And I'm very happy that I live in a country in Serbia where we're squarely in the middle, kind of neutral, doing the sort of thing where we're kind of friends with everybody here in Serbia. The government, I think they're doing a good job of that. Now, is Eastern Europe like, you know, good place to live if you live here and have to depend on the local economy? Not really. That's why I don't depend on the local economy. And if stuff gets bad, I just leave, right? But yeah, Russia. I mean, I do not idealize Russia because I know that it's a brutal culture, and it's sort of like yeah. But there's some truth to be had there. So what I would say to most Slavophiles, like if you want to go back to more traditional Eastern Europe and you want to live in a place that's more honest, or at least the life that you can live is more honest there, which is how I feel typically, is that in Canada there was so much bullshit. I was trying to be somebody, I was forced to try to be somebody who I wasn't in terms of my character, my way of expressing myself, and my way of exploring ideas was very hindered by this sort of conformity of ideology that you have in places like Canada, that really, really, really has gotten a lot worse in the last few years, and I saw it all coming. Like in 2008, I moved to Serbia for the first time and started living here because I saw society in Canada as just capitalistic bullshit. Like it's really rotten, you know, profit, people making money dominates life basically as the main thing in society. It's money, making money. So moving back to Eastern Europe gave me some soul that was lost. Soul is lost when you have a capitalistic orange society, an orange and spiral dynamics society that's just all about the money. Soul is very present in places like Eastern Europe, where people still live a traditional society, where they, know where they're from, know what their roots are. And I was raised with that in my family. Didn't get any of that from my society, very little from Canada. And coming back to Eastern Europe allowed me to reclaim that sort of like part of myself, which is, yeah, traditional society, relax and enjoy. Um, there's a lot to be proud of in the way that these societies in Europe have built, in the way that they still remain relatively cohesive. And yeah, you can make more money in America, have more stuff in Canada, have a middle class life and all that stuff. But I chose not to explore that. So now the whole society in North America is going like green, which is like all this social justice stuff, which Roman here talks a lot about in the video. And yeah, he says that if he lived in America, he'd probably be a social justice warrior, but I don't really think so, because I view this guy as someone who's on my level of being able to entertain contradictory ideas. And the people in North America who are really pushing this social justice agenda don't like to question ideas. They like to parrot slogans. They like to make other people feel like they're bad human beings if they don't agree with them, and they don't like discussing, they don't like elaborating on the ideas. They're just a collectivist mob in the green collectivist social justice mob. And well, it's interesting because that's a stage that we need to go through in North America right now, because the society is fucking eating itself from the inside out, like especially the USA. Yes, police authoritarianism is a huge problem in the United States. It's a huge problem. Anybody who has been across the US border as a foreigner might have gotten a whiff of this. There's a very sadistic sort of like police culture in the US, and it's got to stop. There's a very predatory sort of system of medical cabals, of like pharmaceutical companies, and just like money. They're all about money. They're not about human welfare. Same with the food companies. Bayer, Monsanto would be the name that comes to mind of a company that's just like this predatory capitalist. And that you have to realize also, everybody believes that they're doing a good thing when they're doing all of this. So is it okay to idolize Russia? Yeah, for a traditional, less bullshit society, but there's tons of bullshit in Russia as well. it's a dog-eat-dog country even more so than the United States is, even though the United States is. It's just, yeah, people look at the guy Putin and he's like, you know, he's actually a lot more entertaining to listen to and thought-provoking to listen to than any of these Western politicians. And yeah, so I've been to all sorts of different Slavic countries, and I think that the ones that, yeah, the Western Slavic countries like Poland, Slovakia, and Czech Republic, they've got it right. They're part of the European Union. They're doing their thing, and they are still holding on to their traditions as well at the same time. And it's a contradiction and all that stuff. And that's where we have the best of both worlds. Also in Serbia, my life has the best of both worlds just because of my online remote working in the IT sphere. And that's the way forward. The way forward is not to rebel against the West and the giant brainwashing machine. It's not to rebel against Russia or Slavic, or it's not to rebel against China. It's to live in these places and make your own destiny, your own freedom, and all that stuff. So I found this stop idolizing Russia video really interesting and thought-provoking, because so he's only seeing the Western culture from the perspective of someone who hasn't, I'm assuming he hasn't been to America. So yeah, when you go there, I think you'll realize that it's a lot more of a rough edge, sort of brutal system than it looks like on the surface, because Americans put forward a good face, and the society puts forward like some sort of ideals which seem reasonable, whereas a lot of the time there's a lot of bullshit that happens underneath. And I live in Eastern Europe because, well, I don't have to deal with a lot of that bullshit here. Full stop. Um, and I'm in the IT industry because I don't have to deal with a lot of bullshit in the IT industry. The computers either work or they don't. I fix them or I don't. The stuff, it's an honest business. So what it comes down to is finding a way that you can live honestly. When I was living in Canada, if I was honest about how I felt, my way of expressing it, it freaked people out. And that's why I live in a place where I can speak more freely. That's why I live in a sort of like society where my perspective is somehow cherished and people listen to me. People watch this channel. So, I mean, people are interested in new ideas in Serbia. And this guy, Roman, in Russia, is the sort of guy that I like to hang out with here in Serbia as well. People who understand their own country, what's good and bad about it. And people are interested in new ideas from other countries, interested in traveling the world, learning different languages and all that stuff. And cheers to you, buddy, because you've done a great job. So, from a guy who does not want to live in the West, I'll tell you that other people should make the same choice and come to a place. And then I lived 3 years between 2008, 2011, between Canada and Serbia, 3 months at a time. And I became really, really aware of the differences and which side I wanted to ultimately be on. And my soul, I have a Slavic soul, a German mind, and somehow the influence of America is strong enough here that all the stuff that I like from there has come here. Getting the peace of mind, the self-expression, and the emotional freedom that I enjoy here in Canada, I don't think it can ever happen. And there's lots of people who feel this way, and lots of people who want to view all the nonsense that's going on in the West right now from an arm's length distance. Like, no, it's not for me. So thanks for watching this video. I hope this was interesting as a reaction. So people in Serbia, don't idolize Russia also. People in the West, don't idolize Russia. It's not the perfect place. But if you really want, you really are interested in Russia, go and freaking live in Russia. Come to Serbia, live here. I'm really for understanding that you'll get through a honeymoon period where everything will be great and you'll be so fascinated, and then you'll settle in and you'll realize how different you are from the society and how they don't have it all figured out. Humanity is still a work in progress, and we're lucky and blessed enough to be able to travel the world, work on the internet, and be in touch with all these different people from around the world and enjoy this global sort of discussion. Thanks a lot, guys. Bye now.